What's going on, everyone? UBL Finals is here. Welcome. Before we start, I need to say this. This is a post-commentary battle. I'm sorry. I can't do anything about it. When I was recording for this game, live comming, I had a lot of interruptions that were happening because I was staying with my family, and my family didn't really understand what was going on. So I was getting a lot of barging in and a lot of people trying to talk to me, and even to the point where someone was saying something kind of personal to me that I wouldn't even want to be on a video. So I decided I would scrap the live comm, and that's just purely because I don't think that would be enjoyable, and I don't think that would do this finals game, which is an amazing finals game, justice. So what I'm going to be doing on my channel is a very, very in-depth analysis of this game, because it's a very complicated game with a lot of moving parts that I think ends up having an amazing ending to it. And for Grey's side, he's going to upload the live comm. So if you want to see the live comm content, please go check out Greyvee's channel, because he's an amazing content creator, absolutely nice person, deserves all the views and stuff in the world. Please go check out his channel if you want to watch a live comm, etc. And, just be in that live comm moment if that's more enjoyable for you. But I'm going to try and give as much sort of credence to this battle as possible by putting my best effort into this video, by being as analytical as possible, by being as explanatory as possible, and by, trying to make this as educational, informational, and entertaining as possible at the same time. If, you want to learn the complexities of a Draft League Finals game that might go into it. So, yeah, we're going to do the team builders first. Again, I'm sorry for the post-commentary, but I have no other choice. Sorry. I'm really sorry. But here we go. Team builder. As you can see, Grey's team is underneath me right here. He has Landorus, Slowbro, Goodra, Porygon-Z, Talonflame, Vikavolt, Drapion, Registeel, Verzion, Golurk, Wigglytuff. Of those, I expected to see 6 of the top 8. And I think the ones that he could do without were potentially Goodra and potentially Vikavolt. I thought was a little eh. I would say if I had to predict 6, it would be Lando, Slowbro, Porygon-Z, Talonflame, and Drapion, primarily just because of, one, what he was talking about in his game against me that we had in Week 5, in which I won, where he was saying he wanted to get T-Spikes up very early and didn't get the opportunity to, so if he fought me again, he would want that opportunity to do so. So I had that knowledge kind of going into this game. On top of the fact that he didn't bring Landorus last time, I think that he absolutely should have, and I think he knows that he should have, so I expect that to come as well. I see Slowbro as the only possible answer to Mamoswine on this team, and I see Porygon-Z as the Breast Breaker option. I also thought Talonflame was pretty likely because it is one of the few mons that I faced this season that does sort of naturally revenge my Tornadus, so I did think that he would want to take that liberty and bring Talonflame as a Revenger, perhaps. And then finally, I thought Registeel was quite likely, given that I think he might have lacked that element of physical bulk last time, but I, at the same time, was kind of hoping Registeel wasn't coming at the same time. So we'll have to see what he brings, but those were sort of what I was expecting going in. Largely speaking, I last time brought Tornadus. I didn't bring Jirachi. I brought Mamoswine, I brought Primarina, I brought Delmise, I brought Druddigon, and I brought Typenol. And there's a few moving things to that. So one is that the way I beat him last time was through Specs Primarina, right? So I think he will be better prepared for that, potentially, and then through Mamoswine as well. So just sort of physical special breaker combo. So I was kind of trying to come in my mind how he would deal with that. Ultimately, a lot of my front office concluded that he would bring kind of a Spadef Registeel for Primarina and would bring kind of a Fizdef, Colbur Berry, Rocky Helmet, Slowbro for Mamoswine, try and use those as defensive pivots and then to bring in his offense later on. But that's sort of what I expected from him. So we'll see how he responds to what I built last time, for example. The other reason I brought Typenol last time as well is because I was afraid of a crit Drapion set, which is a set that he's been using very well recently. But I'm hoping that we will not see a crit Drapion set, which kind of tears this team apart, primarily because I have that Battle Armor Typenol on the back. So that was some of the thought processes going in even before the build started in terms of trying to get into each other's head and where each person might build, perhaps. that was kind of what I saw in terms of stuff that I thought Grey would bring. Now, let's get into what I actually brought. So, to counter the T-Spikes strategy that I thought was very, very likely this game, I did end up bringing a bulkier defensive Tornadus with Defog, primarily because last time I did bring a sub-nasty plot Tornadus that had the idea of setting up on something like Slowbro or setting up on something like Registeel. Knowing that he knew I brought that set last time, I imagine he would bring things this time that might break a Tornadus substitute, and in my opinion, without substitute, I ultimately felt Nasty Plot Tornadus wasn't that great here. So I ultimately went for a defog set, which frees up my ability to not bring something like Delmise in order to, you know, handle the T-Spikes or whatever, and then I have Hurricane, Knockoff, and U-Turn. I have it Knockoff instead of Heatwave because Heatwave wasn't doing very much to Registeel anyway, and knocking off its leftovers seemed a lot more beneficial to me. In addition, knocking off something like Drapion Scope Lens if he does end up bringing it and I'm wrong, or just Black Sludge or something else like that, could be a good way to help Tornadus 1v1 a defensive Drapion as well. So that is why I have the bulkier spread on Tornadus. It's meant as a early game, get rid of hazards and stuff, but it also has a lot of revenging capabilities against things like Landorus, Porygon Z if it's not Scarf, Drapion, Virizion, etc. Okay, this next mon is courtesy of CB Marcus, who does help me with mocks most of the time, but he actually helped me with this set in particular when we were mocking, and it was a Charge Beam, Moonblast, Psychic, Aura Sphere, Jirachi. Now, the coverage is a little bit weird. You don't really see anything that's necessarily weak to Moonblast other than Goodra, and you'd think that I would Psyshock that, but ultimately I liked Moonblast as a neutral option against a lot of things, like Drapion, Vikavolt, whatever, and the 60% special attack drop also seemed pretty enticing, so I did roll with that, and the coverage, generally speaking, hits mostly everything with the exception of Golurk, and Psychic still does a good chunk to Golurk after a Charge Beam. Ideally, if he's something like Rocky Helmet's Slowbro, the goal is that he would bring that in, thinking I'm Ironhead, I'm able to Charge Beam and use Slowbro as potential setup for me instead. I also do like the ability to Charge Beam on things like Talonflame after I consume this Occa Berry, or I can just set on something like a Registeel and click Charge Beam, and eventually, you know, I'll be +1 or +2, and I can get those bigger hits off with Psychic, Moonblast, Aura Sphere, whatever coverage necessitates. And of course, Charge Beam is now 100% accurate with Serene Grace. Or sorry, not 100% accurate, 100% chance to rise my special attack stat. So it was 70, and then with Serene Grace becomes 140, which is just 100. So 100% chance of raising my special attack with Jirachi there. So I think it's a cool set, and it's kind of like one of my potential win cons. I have to decide mid-game if I want to use it as a breaker or a win condition, but I could see it being either way. It depends on how he runs speed on some of his mons. So the next mon is Mamoswine. I brought a Expert Belt set last time on this Mamoswine, primarily because I felt that it just did a whole lot to his team. But this time I felt like it was a little bit less good because I thought that Slowbro would be better equipped. Not to say he wasn't equipped last time, but I thought that he would know something like a Knockoff was coming, maybe run Colbur, and just be a little smarter around Slowbro and be a little more preservative of it as the Mamoswine answer. These are all my assumptions and going into the game, of course. So that's what I assumed going into the game, that Slowbro was just going to be a dedicated Mamoswine answer, and I was kind of going to have some trouble with it. To be fair, Mamoswine looks great against everything, but it does struggle with Slowbro if played correctly. So my mentality was, alright, instead let's run a mildly bulkier Mamoswine that can knock off and then can Earthquake the Slowbro right next turn, and because I'm the Lumberry, I don't have to worry about being Scald Burned. And I don't think he would I don't think he would slack off if he, like, had just been knocked off. I think he would go for a Scald Burn or Teleport or something like that. So that's why I kind of did what I did here. It's still nice as a breaker, and it's still nice to revenge things like Landorus with Ice Shard, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have as much power output as much as the capability to stay in one more time. The Lumberry is also handy on top of the Scald Burn to maybe consume it when I'm taking T-Spikes damage so that I can get a one-time switch in without being poisoned. Found that pretty valuable as well, so that's why the Lumberry seemed kind of enticing. I will say there's a few sets on this Mamoswine I was considering before. I was considering Eject Pack Superpower. I was considering potentially more toxic sets. I was considering sets that didn't actually have knockoff on them as well. I was considering Curse as an option, so I could Curse and then the Slowbro comes in and then I do some damage. All of those potential options, I was basically swayed away from them because I felt they were too niche and too gimmicky, and I went for something a little bit more generic instead. So we'll see if that bites me in the butt or not. This next mon is a potential win con as well, being a Calm Mind Draining Kiss Primarina. I've actually not brought Calm Mind Draining Kiss Primarina yet. The Key Berry holds physical defense, or raises physical defense after being hit by a physical attack, so it allows me to not be too KO'd by something like a Landorus or something like a Talonflame that's like Bandit or +2 or something, or even a Drapion. After it poison jabs me, it can't kill me with another poison jab, even if it's physically offensive. So the Key Berry looked really solid here. I was between this last move. I was between so many things for this last move. Oh my god. I was between Aqua Jet. I was thinking about Baby Doll Eyes, which is a weird idea, but something that I actually thought made a lot of sense because it would be priority and lower sort of attack stats so that I would be recovering more with Draining Kiss than damage doing to me against things like Drapion Landorus, for example, you know, with the +1 on my side and the -1 on their side. I was considering just straight up Rest as an option for me as well, but ultimately decided that Encore would be a pretty cool option to stop a Calm Mind Slowbro, which is something that I realized might be a threat a little bit before the game, and I sort of made that decision the day of, I'm pretty sure. So went for Encore there. The next mon is Mienshao, a mon that we actually did so well with week 1 and then kind of stopped bringing. My mentality about Mienshao is very weird. I kind of felt like it was an amazing breaker week 1, and then I just stopped feeling like it could come in a lot of matchups. I feel like it has a very situational matchup dependent like thing, and I never felt that it always could be brought. I mean, there were weeks where I was like, there's no fucking universe in which I could bring Mienshao. So I'm not sure if I'm ever going to draft this thing again. But in this matchup, I think it did make somewhat of sense as a way to potentially bait out Landorus and knock that thing off, bait out Slowbro, knock that off, which clears the way for things like Mamoswine or Jirachi, bait out things like Vikavolt and Stone Edge them later, break things like Registeel, etc. I also liked it as a way to revenge Porygon Z. That was like Specs, and it's a way to revenge Porygon Z that doesn't rely on landing a Hurricane, you know, and, you know, Aura Sphere from Jirachi doesn't do a ton, and I don't want to reveal my set too early, so I liked this as an option. I was between Regenerator and Inner Focus. Inner Focus would block Intimidate from Landorus. I ultimately went with Regenerator because in Mox, no one was switching in Landorus on my Mienshao. Again, we'll see if that comes in to bite me or not, but that was the mentality. It's just Regen had more use in Mox, so I went with that. The final mon is the Rocker. It is a Druddigan, very similar to what I brought last time, except I brought Glare instead of Toxic, I'm pretty sure. And then I think I brought maybe EQ over Taunt or something like that. I'm not sure. But I do want it to be a Rocker again. Again, I was really afraid of Talonflame being a physically offensive powerhouse against my team, and that's really the reason I brought it. It also kind of deals the offensive Drapion if I need it to. So either way, just generally speaking, Rocks phasing out pretty solid against Jack here, so I felt that it was a good bring here. So we're going to get into the finals game again, post-commentary, and I'm sorry about it, but it has to be what it has to be. I'm going to be as analytic as possible in these games. Again, if you are not interested in seeing that, I apologize. I'm sorry. Go check out Gray's side of the battle, but I'm going to try and make this as worthwhile as possible for y'all, and be super analytical about this game. So I'm actually kind of excited to do it, because I haven't done a post-commentary in a while. So I will see you all then. Okay, we are here in the finals game against Jack. He brought something very unexpected, and that is the Golurk. I had about 10 mocks for this game, maybe more, maybe like 15, because I was really wanting to win UBL finals, right? I was going crazy. Not a single person brought Golurk, not one. So maybe that's an oversight on my part. I should have asked someone to bring it, but we'll see how it goes. Golurk was just a weird bring that I was like, wow, okay, it comes. I don't know what to do about this. But I figured it out mid-game, so we'll see. Generally speaking, though, I look at this build, see there's no Talonflame, which is absolutely huge, and I see there's no Vikavolt, which means I don't need to worry about webs, which I like as well, because I didn't bring like boots on any grounded bonds. I do think, looking at this general matchup here, that Primarina has a really solid shot to win. I say this in my commentary. I say, okay, once I get rid of Drapion, Primarina really can win this game here with just sort of calm minding on anything, really, as long as this Porygon Z isn't like Specs or Nasty Plot or like outpaces me in setup. So my mentality is I know that he wants to lead Drapion to get up T-Spike, so I am going to do the same. I am going to... I'm not going to do the same. I'm going to go into my answer to him doing that. That is Tornadus. I'm going to try and, you know, defog with it, Hurricane with it, do whatever I can do here, right? So I ultimately decide to do that. I decide that that's also a really solid lead matchup against something like Lando, because I know I can take like an Adamant Stone Edge if he's like Scarf. So there's really no bad situation in which I lead Tornadus from my point of view at this point in the game. So we do start the game against Jack, which is amazing. UBL finals, woo! Here we are. And he does lead with Drapion like I expect him to. So I know that this is going to be T-Spikes. I'm not super surprised as he goes for it turn 1. I have the option to choose between Hurricane and Knockoff here. I actually look at the team screen I never look at the team screen. I don't know why I looked at the team screen this time, but I looked at the team screen this time. Oh, I think it was because I thought he brought Vigavolt, but he didn't. But anyway, I go for Knockoff here. I do want to be precautious. If he is the sort of SD agility set, tries to set up on me very early, I do want to prevent him from getting crits. And if he's Black Sludge, I'd like to prevent passive recovery as well. He ends up being Sugarberry, so kind of, from my perspective, a wasted Knockoff turn, but he goes for Knockoff himself and gets rid of my boots. Also not very great, but no T-Spikes yet. So at this point, I just kind of want to get damage off on this thing. Like I said in the team preview, if this thing is like chipped or gone, Primarina can win. So I want to get this thing like chipped or gone. And if it means sort of, dealing some damage to Drapion in exchange for more damage on my Tornadus, that's fine. I also want to stay in, as he does here, go for Toxic Spikes. I want to go for Defog to get those away. I don't want to like pivot out and then be force spring Tornadus back in and Defog, because that could allow him to get some momentum. I want to keep Tornadus in and allow him to be the one to switch out so I can take advantage of that. So ultimately, I do go for a Defog here, and I'm not very sure what he wants to do against me. I'm thinking that it's potentially possible that he would want to switch out here, thinking that T-Spikes are just up. I think it's possible that he could just go for a Poison Jab and try and go for damage. Ultimately, he has a few options here, but I ultimately just go for Defog because, again, the T-Spike cannot be up on my side here. I mean, it's just non-negotiable. It can't be here. He does just go for the Knockoff again, which weirded me out a little bit. I wasn't necessarily sure why he didn't go for a Poison Jab this turn. Perhaps he was expecting Jirachi. But I actually found out after the game that he didn't have Poison Jab, so Knockoff was his best damage-dealing move. And similar to my mentality of wanting to stay in to be sure that I'm not the one to switch out, like, he did not want to switch out either. So we're kind of in a standstill at that point, and I ultimately decide to take the bait necessarily and go for U-turn, primarily just because I felt like I didn't want to, get poisoned or something like that. I wasn't necessarily sure. I think I was in range of a Poison Jab, and I didn't know that he didn't have Poison Jab, so I also wanted to switch out at that point too, because if he did go for Poison Jab that next turn, losing Tornadus early would have been a nightmare. So I ultimately decide that I'm going to switch in my Dredigan here. Perhaps not the greatest play, but I looked at it and I basically said, okay, he doesn't have Talonflame, so I feel like I can use this as a way to chip Drapion instead. And I ultimately decide that the way that I want to do this is double into Tornadus now that I've gotten the Regenerator, and not give up any kind of momentum, go into Tornadus because I know that it beats this Drapion, and I want to get a Defog off again. I feel like I beat this 1v1, but he actually ends up revealing the taunt, which prevents me from defogging, sadly, and puts me in a very awkward position, I would say, because I want to defog very badly, but I can't. So I have to sort of just bite the bullet, leave the T-Spike up for a little bit, and just go for more damage on this Drapion. I would love to get this Drapion in range of rocks, which is what one Hurricane would be able to do. We haven't missed Hurricane this season, but he does know that and switches out. So very smart on his part, and goes into Registeel, which something I was a little afraid of, but I ultimately sort of said, whatever, okay. Missing this Hurricane, one, the first Hurricane miss in the entire season, crazy. But secondly, I would have liked to hit it. And the reason is, I mean, you could just say, oh, it did like 5%, who cares? The reason I wanted to hit it is because I wanted to know if it was leftovers or not. And I feel like that would have been pretty useful information for me, based on what you're about to see on this turn. So, I do ultimately decide at this point in the game that I want to either U-turn or knock off. Those are my two options. I want to switch out into something else, or I want to knock off this thing's item and prevent passive recovery. I ultimately decide that U-turn is better because the threat of T-Wave is very, very, very scary, and I don't really know what to do about that. So I'm a little irrationally afraid of T-Wave, perhaps, but I was really afraid of T-Wave. I thought that T-Wave was either coming on this or Slowbro, something to slow down my team, because my team naturally does have speed control over Jack, so that's important. He does reveal the Rocky Helmet here, which is a bit Interesting. I didn't expect to see the Rocky Helmet here, primarily because I thought that passive recovery was very nice on Registeel. And my mentality was that I didn't think I had that many things that were going to be using super effective damage against Registeel anyway. For example, even if me and Xiao takes Rocky Helmet Shift from close combat, it gets regen back. Even if Mamoswine Earthquakes it, doesn't take recoil. It was clearly for the Ironhead Jirachi possibility. So very smart bring on his part, oversight on my part, and it makes me not necessarily a little confused at this point in the game, but it definitely kind of trips me up a little bit because he's already revealed now this set that I did not foresee coming. I foreseed something like a Toxic Leftovers Registeel, and it ends up being Rocky Helmet. I'm not necessarily sure what this is. I'm very cautious about Jack. He, is very willing to bring unorthodox sets, so I wasn't necessarily sure. Now, this turn is absolutely huge. I feel like a Thunder Wave is coming off here. I feel like it has to be. And even if it isn't, it's not going to be a body press. I don't think a body press is going to come off here because you wouldn't just raw body press a Tornadus. That's revealed to be substitute before. So I imagine something either like a Heavy Slam will come off here or a Thunder Wave. One of the two. And I think that in either situation, Mamoswine is a good mon to bring in. I wouldn't want to bring Jirachi in because it gained T-Waved is a nightmare. And Mamoswine has the Lumberry, so even though T-Spikes are up, I can take the damage. I don't have to worry about... I mean, I guess I could worry about Scald Slowbro, but I felt like this was a much more pressing priority. Get in Mamoswine and, not be poisoned because of the Lumberry. Take the Heavy Slam, I think it did like 25% if I got hit with it, or take the T-Wave and be immune to it. So that's what I thought when I went into Mamoswine here, and that's why I did go into Mamoswine ultimately. I was kind of weighing my consideration, my different options, but I can't let Primarina get poisoned. I have no way to take that off. I can't let Dredigan get poisoned. I could let Mienshao get poisoned, but again, that being T-Waved isn't great either. I was very, very afraid of seeing T-Wave here, so I did go into Mamoswine here, and it works out somewhat. He doesn't go for T-Wave, which is what I was expecting, but he does go for Heavy Slam, so we don't see something like the what am I supposed to call it? I don't see something like the Body Press, which would have done a lot of damage to me. We see the Heavy Slam, which as you can see does literally 44% of health, and that's like absolutely nothing. So very cool, very cool. Now, this is an interesting predicament here, right? In every single one of my mocks, Slowbro has been the dedicated Mamoswine answer. In our Week 5 game, Slowbro was the dedicated Mamoswine answer. My mentality is this. I feel like Slowbro is coming in here. He cannot risk, in my brain right now, I feel like he's now seen all 4 of my moves on Tornadus. He's seen Hurricane, he's seen Knockoff, he's seen U-Turn, he's seen Defog. This Registeel walls that. And my mentality is, if he stays in, even if I don't kill with Earthquake, if he stays in, I would imagine that he would be very low if he doesn't just outright die. And he doesn't even know my item. I could be, or he does, because I revealed Lumberry. So, but, like, Max Adamant Earthquake is doing, like, 70% of this thing. I mean, it's going to be, and it doesn't have passive recovery with leftovers. My mentality was this. It was, I don't think this thing's going to stay in because I feel like it needs the health to take on things like Tornadus. And since Rocky Helmet likely means it's the dedicated Rachi answer, I would imagine that in his mind, he would want to keep this in as the dedicated Rachi answer. So I believe at this point in time in the game that it is very likely that he is going to go into Slowbro here. And I make a very quick play and I go for Knockoff. And it might work and it might not. We'll see. I'm definitely thinking about it a little bit. And I definitely could just make the Earthquake play on a Slowbro swap-in. But I do think that Knockoff, I want to make the ballsier play, and it doesn't work. It's really, like, this turn is bad for me. I'm like, if I could show you my, like, reaction to it, I wish I could, but I was very upset. Because, one, I thought that Slowbro was the switch. I thought that there was no question that he would let this take so much damage. I thought definitely Slowbro was coming in. It's one of those things where it's like, in hindsight, don't make the read, right? Like, why bother? But in the game, I was like, you can't let this go down, so you have to go into Slowbro. I feel like you have to go into Slowbro, right? It has to be physically defensive. It has to be built to take on Mamoswine. There's nothing else on your build that would possibly take on Mamoswine, you know? So I thought that Slowbro was pretty obvious. I thought it was so obvious that I didn't think he was even that risky of a read to make the knockoff play. Turns out it was. And Jack ends up being body press on top of heavy slam, which is another thing I didn't expect, because I thought that he only had room for one attacking move, and once I saw heavy slam, I imagined that was his main form of move. So the fact that he has both heavy slam and body press, another thing that I didn't expect. That was very solid prep on Jack's part, because I thought he would have to have rocks. I thought he would have to have toxic, maybe protect, maybe rest, right? I didn't think he had room for all those moves. T-Wave is the other thing, like I was saying, that I thought this could possibly have. Body press plus heavy slam. I expected once I saw heavy slam that would be the only move. I was wrong. So, I lose my Mammoth very early. That's kind of a bad thing, but I have a lot of win cons here, right? I do have the ability to win with my Calm Mind Primarina, like I said. Drapion's getting chipped. I do have the ability to win with Drachi if I want, but those are kind of where the two things are leaning towards. It sucks that I lost my Mammoth. It's one of my better mons in the matchup against this team, but I don't think this is lost by any means whatsoever. I do have the capability to win this very easily if I can play my cards right. I do take my opportunity here to defog. I think it's most important. I think that if he was T-Wave, he would have used it there. So I go into my Tornadus and I say, okay, I'm using this opportunity to defog, because I can't let anything else in to get poison. It's just not doable. And I could have gone to my Irachi perhaps, but again, I think that prolongs the inevitable of T-Spikes just being up. And again, like I said, I didn't know his set. So perhaps could have gone to Irachi started breaking, but the other thing too is I didn't know if Porygon Z was Scarf. I didn't know if Lando was Scarf, so who knows how much he was actually going to like put in terms of breaking power. I could have charged beam, and then he said it, and then Jack could have said Aurora Spear is coming out next, and then he could have gone to, you know, Landorus, and he went into Landorus, I would have just swapped out. So I didn't think it was valuable here. I thought it was more valuable to defog, and then that would allow myself to bring in something like Dredigan, perhaps. I am kind of back and forth on what I want to do. I know this thing still has a Rocky helmet around. I do ultimately end up going for U-turn because I want to get the hell out of here. No, I knocked off the Rocky helmet, so U-turn was actually free. That's why I did it. I was kind of questioning in my mind, why did I U-turn there if I knew his helmet? And I almost click on Jirachi here. I'm very close to clicking on it because I think that it is a good way to potentially break this Regiseal, and I go against my gut because I felt as though it was more likely that something like a Heavy Slam was coming out again here, and that Mienshao could take it, regen it off, threaten it out with close combat. He actually just goes for Stealth Rocks here, and that's a little annoying. I didn't think, well, I mean, after seeing Heavy Slam and, seeing Body Press, I didn't think this thing would be Rocks, because I think I would have thought a status move is more important on this thing, like T-Wave or Toxic or something, so I wasn't really thinking about it. But I also wasn't upset when I saw Rocks. I do still have Defog on Tornadus, and none of my mons are really weak to Rocks necessarily, so I wasn't too bothered by this. In fact, I was kind of relieved that Mienshao didn't have to like take random body press damage or something. And again here, I say, okay, now this thing definitely fucking dies to Mienshao, so I U-turn. I'm saying, okay, Slowbro has to come out this turn, right? I mean, it has to. And I think that U-turn is a pretty safe play because I do not think that he can risk his Regiseal. Again, it has been revealed that this Regiseal hard walls my Tornadus, and he stays in. I still haven't seen Jack's side of the game, and he wasn't necessarily sure when I was talking to him after the game. He seemed kind of just like, well, I wasn't necessarily sure. But it was a good play nonetheless to stay in. It obviously hurts me here because I now have to bring something else in, and it doesn't look nice. But CC would have nuked this thing. So, you know, I wish I CC'd. I wish I CC'd and this Registeel was gone. It's going to make this game harder. It's not going to make this game impossible, but it's going to make this game harder. So somehow he calls me on this U-turn play again after calling me on the knockoff play and leaves Registeel in. Freaking leaving Registeel in. What a goddamn... Jack has balls, is what I'm trying to say. Again, I don't think this is bad by any means. I think I could bring in my Dredigan here and make it take like a lot of Rocky Helmet chip after he goes for something like a Body Press, for all I know, like he does here. And it's going to be, you know, slowly in range of stuff. So he's revealed Heavy Slam, Body Press, and Rock so far. I would imagine the last move is something like Toxic or T-Wave still. So I ultimately decide, okay, let me get my own Rocks up, make some sort of passive chip as well. I'm going to have to eventually defog his Rocks, I imagine, because they're just annoying for my side. But in the meantime, I might as well get Rocks up on my own. Now, one thing that I really wish I did here was I wish I taunted. I probably should have taunted here, and it would have prevented him from doing anything, and this was definitely a huge misplay on my part. I think taunt would have made a lot of sense here, but I didn't taunt. For some reason, I thought Rocks was better. This was definitely the biggest, not the biggest misplay I made, but this was definitely the thing that I said, okay, whatever. But he does end up switching out anyway, so maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. But even if I taunted here, it would have prevented him from getting up T-spikes this turn. So I'm still kind of like, I wish I taunted here, but it doesn't end up mattering. But if I was redoing this turn, I would click taunt instead of Rocks. I don't think Rocks were too valuable against his team. Like, he doesn't have anything weak to Rocks either. I can't taunt him here. I imagine he's going to try and go for T-spikes again on me, potentially, so that I would be forced to clear the Rocks from his side. At the defogging sort of burden would be on me at this point in the game. So I do end up just going for Dragon Tail. I imagine he's just going to go for a T-spike, but he doesn't. He actually goes for taunt, so cool. I appreciate that. And I just go for Dragon Tail here. So it is going to do quite a bit to this Drapion, to the point in which I think it's in range of Rocks twice. So I don't think there's a point in which this thing's going to be able to necessarily get T-spikes up ever again, which I consider at this point in time a victory. T-spikes being up are bad, so I feel like I've successfully prevented T-spikes from getting up on my side of the field. Unfortunately, Dragon Tail brings out this thing, and I can't taunt it, and I can only Dragon Tail it. And I say, okay, this thing can't really do anything to me anyway, it just can body press or whatever. So I'm just going to Dragon Tail again, like I don't know what it's going to do, and he reveals the rest. And I definitely make a little sigh here. Maybe I can move my camera and show you the sigh. No one's interrupting me at this point in the game, so I'll do a little thing here. Look how upset I am as he rests. It's crazy. He goes to rest here, and I'm just like, ugh, come on. So yeah, but anyway, he rests. That's not very nice, because my -1's dead, so one of my main ways to break this is gone. I also missed the Dragon Tail, which means that he can easily burn a sleep turn here, which also sucks. My way to break this is Yin Xiao now, so we're gonna see. I'm not necessarily sure, but I do know all 4 moves on this thing. I know that it's Rest, Earthquake, Heavy Slam, Rocks, and that's it. No status move. So Primarina actually can use that as setup bait. And I need to think about that during this game. So when I'm thinking about how I'm going to position Primarina in this endgame, I really am thinking about setting up on this Registeel possibly. So he brings in the Landorus, and I'm basically like, okay, I can take any one hit. I don't want this thing to set up on me. I'm going to go for Toxic because I think that that's better. I don't know why I think that's better, but I think it's better. I think I could have just as easily Dragon Tailed here, but maybe I thought if it was defensive, I would like to Toxic it so that it can't come in on me and Xiao easily. And he goes for Earthquake here. I'm like, okay, I live this, and I don't live it. And I'm like, okay, is this a crit? And I'm like, no, and I'm really confused. Turns out I do some calcs. This thing is banded, and it got I believe a roll that was quite literally 50-50 to kill my Druddigon at that point in time. So 50% chance for a banded Landorus to kill my Druddigon at this point, and it does. So I die to a 50% chance. Obviously I didn't know, but this does confirm to me this is banded, which allows me to so freely say, okay, I can just go into Tornadus here and I'm fine. So I have a few options here. I can go for Knockoff, but I feel like Registeel is likely to come in anyway, so I don't really bother. I could go for Defog, which is what I do, because I think that Rocks up on my side of the field are a little bit more annoying than I anticipated them to be. Plus, I'm looking at certain rolls, seeing that this thing is banded. I know that I need to, in order for Primarina to set up efficiently, I need to take as little prior damage as possible so that banded Landorus isn't going to like do anything to me. So I ultimately just take Defog's most valuable play. Could have U-turned here as well, could have been just as possible, and gone into Mian Xiao, but I ultimately decided not to. I think Rocks are a little bit more annoying on my side than his side at this point in the game. So that's what I ended up doing. I don't think it was like a good play or a bad play by any means. It was just really a play. I just decided to play with no Rocks instead of with Rocks. Go for U-turn here, get a little bit of residual chip. He does burn his second sleep turn here because he's pretty much able to. Now I'm going to go into my Mian Xiao on this to actually try and fucking kill it. And do I think that he's going to stay in again? I don't think so. I think that after he's seen me overpredict, he knows how I play. He knows that I freaking do not want this thing around. Like, he sees how much this is doing to me. You know, I imagine he's switching here, and I call him on that. I'm not going for close combat this turn. And again, this game is 6-4. I'm down on paper, but I'm looking at this team and I'm saying things are chipped. Registeel is a set that gets set, that is literally setup fodder for 2 of my mons. I do think that I really saw a win con at this point. I saw 2 win cons, frankly, at this point in the game, which is Jirachi and Permina. So I had to aim for one of those 2 in order to win this game. So on top of that, the fact that Landorus revealed banned meant that I was pretty confident that Porygon Z was the Scarfer. I feel like there had to be a Scarfer because the fastest mon that he brought was Landorus. He goes into Drapion here to sack it. Smart play on his end. It means no T-Spikes, so it means I've successfully prevented T-Spikes, which is pretty cool. I actually don't kill with knockoff, which is pretty funny, but it doesn't really matter because I just outspeed and kill this next turn anyway. And I just go for knockoff again. I considered going for U-turn, but I felt that any other thing I brought in would just bring in something else. I wasn't super interested in doing that, so ultimately just decided that it was a better call to just kill this thing outright. He actually switches out, which is kind of crazy too, perhaps thinking that I was U-turn or something like that. I actually don't know why he switched into this thing, because I feel like I could have easily close combated, but I chose not to. I guess I could have. I thought he was just sacking it, so I was just clicking quickly, and he goes into Registeel. I can't really explain why he did that. I'm not necessarily sure why he did. I mean, it obviously makes me regret not clicking CC, but in the moment, I'm like, if he's doubling out here, he might double into Landorus, something like that. I didn't think he would double into something that I outright kill, but he did. So that's interesting. It was mostly because I think that he wanted to, now in hindsight, take a hit and then pivot back out. I'm not necessarily sure. If he went into Slowbro this turn, I think this play would have made a little bit more sense in my mind, because it would have meant that he still preserves his sack while at the same time bringing in something that I would have to U-turn on anyway. But he actually just ends up sacking the Drapion. So, I mean, he does it to, you know, eventually make me take the close combat damage, which is smart. I don't know how much it gives him. Because no matter what he brings in here, I'm swapping out anyway. Like if he brings in Lando, I'm swapping out. If he brings in Porygon Z, I would imagine that it's choice, so I wouldn't really think about it. So at this point in the game, I just don't really know why he did that, but it didn't make really much of a difference, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, I'm negative. He did it, so I would be negative in my stat, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm just clicking U-turn this turn regardless, because I don't want to die. So I do just go for U-turn this turn. I have to, frankly. So do I wish I was inner focus in this moment? Maybe, perhaps. I'm not necessarily sure. I would have been a little bit lower, but just mildly. But U-turn would have done more damage. I'm not necessarily sure. But whatever, it's irrelevant. I am just pretty sure I just want to U-turn here. I do a little double checking at this point in the game. Whoops, I'm sorry about the bar there, y'all. I do a little double checking in this game to attempt to find out, you know, to like guarantee that he's Scarf or banned rather, and he definitely is. So I go for U-turn here without any reservations. And at this point in the game, I have to be like, okay, what the fuck is he locking into here, right? Because if he locks into Earthquake, Torn is a great play, right? But if he locks into Stone Edge and calls me right now, then I might lose. So I kind of have to bank on some things. You know, I can either go into Jirachi hoping that he is playing ballsy and going for Stone Edge here, or I can go into Tornadus and say, okay, he's clicking Earthquake or Knockoff. I ultimately decide Tornadus is safer. I can't afford to lose Jirachi. It's one of my possible win cons. Whereas if I lose Torn, I lose some speed control, but Torn's kind of walled anyway by Registeel, so I'm not the most concerned about it at this moment. So he does go for knockoff, and my item's already knocked off, so it's not even the worst thing in the world. This damage 100% confirms me banned, not that the other one already didn't, and I ultimately decide to just go for U-turn here. I mean, I think it's painfully obvious that Registeel is coming in, and if he swaps out, if he stays in rather than cool, but I don't think he can afford to lose the Bant on this. I think this is far too important for him. I have to make some pretty big reads here, because even though I do see win cons in the end, I do feel like I am behind at this point in the game, so I do have to make some reads and bring myself back to a sort of even level in this game, and call him on a switch here. And he does switch. Pretty smart on his part. I don't think he had any reason to stay in and risk anything at all. I just go back into, or he just goes back into Registeel rather, which is going to allow me to go back into my Mienshao if I so please. Now, I could have gone to Primarina, use this as setup fodder, but the calc for Bandit EQ was literally like 80%. And if he's smart, I would think that he would just fucking go into it. In addition, he could have been Explosion on this band set, which would have just ended my Primarina anyway. So I did not feel like setting up at this exact moment was the smartest choice. I felt like going into Mienshao was just better. So I did. I go into Mienshao here, and truthfully, I forget what I click. So we're going to find out together. I imagine I just click either Close Combat or, yeah, Close Combat here. I would think maybe he stays in. This is like the third time he's attempted to sack Registeel in front of me. So I'm like, I guess I'll just attack what's in front of me. Like, that would suck if I just, like, U-turned again, or then, like, you know, who knows what would happen. So I just go for Close Combat here. I don't want to fuck around. Maybe I could have knockoffed, given that he didn't really kill me with anything. I mean, Body Press would have done a ridiculous amount, to be fair. So perhaps it was better that I just CC'd. Who knows? But Jack really does have to think about this, right? Like, he can go into Landorus and take more damage. He can go into Slowbro. But I have been doing a lot of predicting lately, and I would think that maybe he wants to stay in again on this. I'm not necessarily sure. But I don't know. It doesn't feel like a 50-50. 50-50s are unfair what to call it, but it just does feel like this like weird thing where I can't predict what he's doing right now because I'm having a hard time figuring out why he's doing certain things. And that's not to say he's making bad plays, or I just could not get inside his head, and that's fully on me at this point. So I get this play wrong. I get the Close Combat play wrong, and had I U-turned or knocked, I think I would have been in a much better position here. But alas, doesn't happen. I go for Close Combat, and it's not the worst thing in the world, because eventually this thing is going to get in range of something like a Stone Edge. It is in range of a Tornadus Hurricane now. It's really not the worst thing in the world. Here I have to make another read. I have to say, okay, I could very, very easily go into Tornadus here like I did last time. I think it is likely that he makes a Stone Edge play here. I feel like he is going to predict my Tornadus coming in. I think it is likely that he is going to Stone Edge, trying to get Tornadus dead, and he's going to do that. I feel like that's what he has to do. Eventually, this is just becoming a game of predictions, but my mentality says, I feel like I went Tornadus last time. If I go Tornadus, I'm just going to get momentum again and deal more damage with Mienshao. I don't think he wants that, so I am going to just knock off here, get rid of the Choice Band, and if he stays in and I get the play wrong, then at least it can't do much to Primarina. I get the play wrong. He goes for Earthquake, and now I'm starting to like get really frustrated because I thought that he was definitely going to go into Tornadus on this turn, thinking that that's what I did last time, and saying, okay, like, I don't know. But he predicted my prediction, is what I'm trying to say, and that's very good on him. That's very smart of him. So, oversight on my part. But the other thing, too, the reason I was so emboldened to make that play is because he still had a Slowbro on the back that I was convinced was physically defensive because it's his only Mamoswine answer on his team, right? So I was like, even if I lose this here, it's probably the most expendable mon on my team because, like, I can't break that Slowbro with that. So I just was like, all right, I'll make this read now. Didn't end up working out, but that's okay. So I go into Jirachi here. I ultimately decide that I'm going to revenge this with Psychic. I know I outspeed it, and that's what I decide to do. He could go into something like Registeel again, but that would be setup fodder for me. So, but if he did do that, that would have been perfect. He could go into Slowbro. He can go into Registeel. He has a few options here. But I ultimately decide I'm just going to go for Psychic. Just get damage off, and then I can play depending on what he goes into. He goes into Porygon Z, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why is this the switch in? And I go for Psychic, and it does half. It does a little bit under half, I will say. And I do get the Spadaf drop here, which is a 20% chance with Serene Grace. Now, it doesn't really matter because I could have just gone for Aura Sphere next turn anyway. But what this does allow me to do is it does allow me to like bluff a Scarf. I don't know how valuable it is at this point in the game to bluff a Scarf because I don't think Scarf's special Jirachi should be coming into this matchup in any way, and I'm pretty sure Jack knows that. But I just go for it anyway, right? Like, there's no harm in at least making him potentially think that I'm Choice Scarf. The reason I don't fear Choice Scarf Shadow Ball of his own there is frankly because I don't have any other choice. I can't really go into anything else. So I just kind of have to hope that it's not Scarf, and it works. This does shock me, though. I am very shocked at this point in the game because it means that Jack's fastest mon on this build is a Banded Landorus. It means that he really did not have very much speed control. Didn't even bring webs. So I was shocked to see it. I was definitely like, wow, I would have thought something comes as Choice Scarf in this game, because you want to be able to revenge Tornadus, you want to be able to revenge, Jirachi, Mian Xiao, and he didn't even bring Talonflame. Talonflame could have done that, but since he didn't bring Talonflame, through this entire game, I was saying, okay, either Landorus and PZ is Scarf. Once Landorus revealed Band, I was like, PZ has to be Scarf. But at this point in the game, I lose if, like, he's Scarf anyway, so I just say fuck it and risk it, and I'm stunned when I outspeed. But it works out. It makes me start having a little bit of regrets at this point in the game, because it makes me wish that I had gone for certain things sooner, like this Jirachi, and said, okay, like, these things won't be Scarf. But, like, it's hindsight, right? I have no clue if he is Scarf or isn't, and my mentality is that he would be Scarf. So had I said it with Jirachi earlier, I feel like I could have put on, like, so much more early game offensive pressure, but I didn't know what was Scarf and what wasn't. He has to decide what to do here, and he actually goes into Golurk. And this is a pretty bold play by Jack here, because I could be Scarf, even though he could easily say in his live commentary, and I'm going to watch it tomorrow when he brings it up, when you all see his live commentary too, he could easily say, there's no fucking way this is Scarf, right? And just be like, whatever, and bring this in. But I would think that if I was Scarf, I could just Psychic twice. But he could also be AV, so it's not a weird play at all. I think this actually makes perfect sense as a play. He's been keeping this in the back, so I actually think it could possibly be Rock Polish. But at the same time, I don't think that it is, like, the biggest deal. Like, I don't know. This Golurk is scary, but it's not, like, the worst thing in the world. I ultimately do think that I have to go into my Tornadus here and just get some damage off prior. Very important for me to do so, because I can't kill this in one shot with anything. And I'm in the end game of this battle, and I'm saying, okay, I have to win with Primarina now, or I have to win with Jirachi now. I have to do one of the two. He actually goes for Rock Polish here, and I actually don't mind this at all, because Rock Polish doesn't scare me. I would just be able to go into Primarina next turn. And I'm afraid, after seeing Rock Polish, that this thing is Weakness Policy. So I choose not to knock off here. I choose to Hurricane instead, thinking that it's Weakness Policy. And I actually get punished for it by missing this Hurricane, as you see here. I'll just give a random little spoiler that he isn't Weakness Policy. And maybe I should have thought that mid-game. He was actually Yachi Berry, which, of course, never procs because I don't have an ice move anymore. But I was pretty shocked not to see not weakness. I wasn't shocked at all. This side makes perfect sense. But in the moment, I didn't want to click knockoff. I was afraid of Weakness Policy. If I had maybe 5 more minutes to think about it, maybe I would have gone for knockoff. But I don't have that time in a Wi-Fi game. For the people who are like, why don't you make this play? You only have like basically 60 seconds to make each play, and you're also like writing stuff down and keep track of other stuff and can't see things to either side of you. So to all the Showdown players who are like, Wi-Fi is so easy, Wi-Fi players are so bad, think about the constraints that you have that we don't. Anyway, I decide that my only option here is to go into Primarina, because I don't have another option. Thankfully, the Keyberry procs here, and all of a sudden, I am +1 defense, +1 special attack, +1 special defense. So I go for Calm Mind here because I think ultimately that I want to set up on this thing. If he was Poltergeist, I would have loved to consume the Keyberry, and then he wouldn't have been able to touch me. I was hoping he wouldn't have Earthquake. He would have Poltergeist instead, but he didn't. So now I have to make the decision of, do I Surf? Do I Draining Kiss? What do I do here? And it's a little tough. I'm not necessarily sure at this point in the game. If I Surf, I'm looking at a calc in which, like, if he has some investment, I might not KO, which would then give him this Weakness Policy boost that I was concerned of him having, and then he would just outright win the game. So my new thought is I Draining Kiss. I take 1 Earthquake, I Draining Kiss, which allows me to take a 2nd Earthquake now that I have the +1 defense boost, and then I Surf. So Draining Kiss into Surf would do it, and then I go for the end game win with Jirachi. And I'm looking at this team, right? And he has 3 things left, right? If I can kill this Golurk, I think Jirachi can win this game. He has 3 things left. He has Landorus, which I naturally outspeed with Jirachi. He has Registeel, which I can charge beam up on and just spam Aura Sphere. Once I get one Charge Beam, I two-shot that Registeel, and it can't do very much back to me. And there's a Slowbro, which if it's physically defensive, even if it's specially defensive, a few Charge Beams are going to kill it. And they can't really kill me with much except like a few Scalds or something like that. It's not going to do very much damage to me. So ultimately I say, okay, I think I'm going to go for this endgame with Jirachi. I'm going to try and kill this Golurk with Primarina. I'm going to use Primarina as the way to eliminate Golurk, and then go for the Jirachi win with Charge Beam to try and seal up the game. Because I think I'm at this point in the game confident that Jirachi can win this game with the set that I currently have. As long as I beat this Golurk with this Primarina, I go for Draining Kiss. Do I think Surf would have killed at this point? I don't know. It really wouldn't have mattered, frankly, because, like, it really wouldn't have mattered. Because he's just going to revenge me with Landorus. Anyway, it doesn't really matter if I'm at 50% for that or 25%. I mean, I guess it does, but it doesn't. Like, I'm going to be very low at the end of this exchange anyway. And again, my win con is not Primarina now. My win con is Jirachi. So he goes for Earthquake again. I can't Draining Kiss. I am losing health throughout this confrontation. One thing that I do wish I was is I wish that I was Baby Doll Eyes. That would have helped me actually gain more health in this situation, which is what I was freaking thinking about, but I was like, nah, it's too niche. Encore is totally useless here, though. And I just go for Surf. I kill this thing. I'm like, whatever. It doesn't even matter because, like, the win con is Jirachi, not Primarina. So he's going to be forced to go into Landorus here, which means I can't get a Charge Beam boost off immediately. But it does mean that he's going to revenge me, and then I'm going to be able to go into Jirachi, click Psychic, and then he's going to have a Registeel that can't touch me, and a Slowbro that hopefully can't touch me either. I mean, if he's, like, Nasty Plot or something like that, then that's going to be weird, or Trick Room. But in my mentality, I was thinking this Slowbro has to be built as the Mamoswine answer. He had no other Mamoswine answer on my team, and on his team, and I would think it's Helmet or Fizdef in some way. I feel like this Slowbro is Fizdef. So this is I don't have a choice. So I go into Jirachi. I'm going to take the kill. I think I ultimately decide to click Moonblast here because I still haven't revealed that I'm not Choice Scarf. So the hope is that if I Moonblast here and he's like for some reason convinced I'm Scarf, he could be more swayed to go into Registeel, for example, instead of Slowbro, which is a little bit more Charge Beam fodder than Slowbro, but Slowbro in my mind is also Charge Beam fodder. So I think at this point in the game, depending on the Slowbro set, I win this. And I'm feeling good. We're feeling good going into this finals to everyone. So we're going to see what this Slowbro is. He goes into it pretty quickly, so he was like, nope, I don't take the bait Aquarius. That's fine. I can't really think about it. I'm going for Charge Beam. He has 56 seconds left on his timer. I don't think he's going to run out of time because he knows his time's low and he knows it's a quick situation. We're going to see what happens here. Charge Beam. We could run a calc together if we want to. Here we are in the calc. I'm going to move my face cam. So I know this is intense. I know we want to see this, but I'm just going to show you the damage rolls before we get into it, right? So if it's a physically defensive Slowbro like I expect it to be, it's a 3-shot, and then I Oko Registeel with a +3 Aura Sphere once it comes out. If he is Spud Def for some reason, which I don't expect him to be, does 20 to 24, and then a +1 does 29 to 35, and then a +2 does 39 to 47. Still dies in 3, I believe, because what is that? Basically 25 plus 35 plus 45 might be a roll. But look how little Scald is doing. It's never a 3 at KO, and I had some Spadef as well. So it also depends on if I'm getting Scald burnt or not. If he's AV, I just lose, but I don't expect AV. So we're going to hop in and see how this goes. I have no choice. I go for the Charge Beam here. We're going to see how much damage it does. And that does 18%. This Slowbro is a max AV Slowbro. And I was stunned. I was so shocked because I'm flashing back to prep. I'm flashing back to this game where all of these plays I made thinking Slowbro is physically defensive this game. I thought Slowbro was coming in on Mamoswine because I thought it was his only answer to Mamoswine. So I clicked knockoff and lost Mamoswine. I clicked U-turn with me and Xiao against Registeel because of the same thing. I, basically played this entire game thinking it was Fizz-Def Slowbro. And in my defense, I did a ridiculous number of mocks. Again, every single Slowbro that came was built physically defensively. Every single one. Because it's his only Mamoswine answer. This is not to say that Jack made a mistake or was bad or in any way. This is to say that Jack, in a way, was pretty smart here. Because just with Slowbro in the back with doing nothing at all, he wasn't even able to switch it in, right? So everything I just said saying, oh, we should have switched in Slowbro against me and Xiao, we should have switched in Slowbro against Mamoswine, no, we shouldn't have. Since he's max HP, max Spadef Slowbro, he should never switch in this thing against those two mons. But in my mind, I was so sure that the physically defensive Slowbro set was coming that I didn't even think that this would be an option for him. I mean, his team has no Mamoswine answer that he brought. But he knew that. He said, all right, I'll just trade, is what he said after the game. He said, if I have to lose something to Mamoswine, I'll just bring something in and try and revenge it. Which is perfectly fine. Sometimes you don't have a reliable answer to something. You just gotta revenge it like that. My mind was never in that area. This is AV. This means that Jirachi does no longer 3-hit KO this Slowbro. If it was physically defensive, it did easily. If it was specially defensive, it was a roll in my favor to do so. After multiple rolls, etc. Assuming I don't miss my charge beams. And if it's AV, it's a 4-hit KO. It's not a 3-hit KO. And what this means is that it means he, A, cannot have Shadow Ball or Flamethrower, because those will 3-hit KO me. And B, he cannot, if he chooses to Scald Burn me. Scald does not 3-hit KO me, which means I can still Charge Beam 3 times and then take the 4th kill, or the 4th attack with Charge Beam, kill this, and then he brings in Registeel, and I win by Aura Spear and the Registeel with just a little bit of health left on my Jirachi. If he burns me once with these Scalds, I lose, because it immediately means that I get 3-hit KO'd by 3 Scalds because of the residual burn chip. If I was AV, this wouldn't be the case. If I was Lum, this wouldn't be the case. If I was Calm Mind, this wouldn't be the case, but I am the set I am, is what it is. Now that he has revealed AV, if I get burned once over these 3 Scalds, I lose the game. We're going to see how lucky I am. I feel like a lot of luck's gone against me in this game so far. I'm not going to call it a Haxy game, but, basically every RNG thing that did happen was towards me. And I do get burned. And I'm very upset. I'm not upset now. It was pretty awesome by Jack. I mean, he stared down a Mamoswine in the face and said, hey, I'm going to bring AV Slowbro with max HP, max Spadef. I would never have done that. But Jack did it, and it worked out well for him, and I'm very happy that he ended up winning the league. I can't take another hit. I go for Moonblast here as kind of a Hail Mary, in terms of potentially, possibly getting a Spadef drop, and then that would allow me to take one more hit. Doesn't really work. He just Scalds again, and I'm going to die to 2 more burns. So even with that chip, I can't do it. And I'm going to lose this game. I'm sorry to everyone who was watching this run and was really happy and, was enjoying the run and stuff like that. I couldn't bring it home. My first Wi-Fi playoffs run ended in a finals, so I'm not too upset, but it definitely is frustrating. It's frustrating to come into a game thinking what your opponent is going to do, and then he just does the total opposite, and it's frustrating. It's really annoying, because it just shows that people think about the game differently, and I don't want this post-commentary to reflect a belief that I thought Jack played bad or built bad or anything like that. He just built differently than what I expected him to, and that's okay. It means I fucked up by not understanding what Jack would do. He was the better player because he understood what I would do. He knew when I would overpredict. He made those calls. I didn't, especially in prep. I overthought about what I would do and not what he would do or someone else would do. And that's what cost me this game. There's a few other things that I could have done that were in prep that are hindsight. If you remember when it came to Primarina, for example, I was considering teching Aquajet on there in the end, which would have allowed me to pick off the Landorus once it came in to revenge me, and then all of a sudden I actually would have been able to beat Slowbro and not beat Slowbro in Registeel 1v1, but deal some damage to it to the point in which Jirachi would be able then to, have some prior chip in the first place. I could have had a Superpower Eject Pack on Mamoswine, which I would have clicked in front of that Mamo. In front of the Registeel, rather, and he would have stayed in, taken a lot of damage, and I would have switched out at the same time. That was another option. Just didn't do it, and that's just what happens sometimes. I love Jack. I want to give a shout out to both Jack and Vepsis. This kind of was, as much as Jack, won this championship, amazing. I find it kind of poetic that Vepsis still, with the team that he drafted, because Jack was a takeover team for Vepsis, who is the 2-time champion of UBL, ended up winning this. So in a way, I feel very nice because it's like Vepsis holds on to his championship just a little bit, but really this is all Jack. Jack has been absolutely killing it this gen and this Wi-Fi scene. He's been amazing, and I've really gotten to know him recently. A while. We're actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. We're making a league together. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'm saying it. Ooh, you're gonna see it in like a long time, but it'll be eventually a thing. But he's a great guy. Please go check out his channel. Please go watch his version of the game. I'm not upset. I have UPBA still. I actually play my semi-finals game either today or tomorrow. But even if I lose that, I'm looking back at this season of the UBL and saying, really, I really felt like a nobody at the start of the season. I, by far, had the least number of subscribers out of every single person in the UBL. Over the course of this season, my sub count has doubled, which is absolutely insane. Over doubled. The amount of support you all have given me is so kind and so thoughtful during a point in my life in which I really do appreciate that love. And to say I went undefeated in a UBL, even though I lost in finals, holy fuck. Like, I'm so happy of, like, I pushed myself farther than I thought I could have pushed myself. I did better than I thought I could have done. And I have nothing but smiles coming out of this season. So I hope you enjoyed this season. Go give some love to Jack on his channel. And I will see you all in another Draft League season. All right.